Excellent. So let's invite over the ELECTOTRON-2020.
Test, test. All right.
Are we on?
Hello,
Yes.
everyone. Before we begin, I just want to remind you guys to please turn off your pagers, recording devices, and any other electronic devices you might have before we begin.
We'll wait.
Okay, now that that's taken care of, good morning, everybody. My name is Bob.
And I'm Alice.
And on behalf of the marketing and technical departments of Walla-Burton Incorporated, its CEO, board of executives, stockholders, affiliates, and constituents, we'd like to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to come to today's presentation. We here at Walla-Burton know just how valuable your time is to you. After all, you are the leaders of today.
And hopefully tomorrow.
And hopefully tomorrow. Which is why we here at Walla-Burton are putting the science back in political science to bring you a paradigm-shifting, synergetic e-solution to your speechwriting needs. After all, paid speechwriters are expensive, they're time-consuming, and most importantly, they take control of your speechwriting away from you.
And us.
And us. But what if I told you that you could have access to the breadth of human rhetorical skill from ancient Rome all the way to the 20th century in your back pocket? Now that's thinking outside of the box. In the box with the ELECTOTRON-2020.
Bob, is this the part where I tell them about the technological marvels we have wrought?
I sure think it is, Alice.
The ELECTOTRON 2020 draws from a colossus of thousands of speeches from hundreds of orators across the ages. We leverage hidden Markov models to chain together existing rhetoric to form stunning, original rhetoric that is sure to leave your audience speechless. This is bleeding-edge 20th century technology. And it all runs on your home PC.
Bleeding-edge technology, folks.
Bleeding edge technology.
Bleeding edge.
Bleeding edge.
And now, to demonstrate that bleeding edge technology,
edge.
we would like to welcome to the stage 4, let's call them candidates. And we're going to host a kind of mock primary election, for those of you who still have to deal with those pesky election cycles. And for those of you who don't, it's still going to be a stunning demonstration of just what this little baby can produce. So, our first guest we'd like to welcome to the stage, and our biggest fan, Carol Weissman. Give it up for Carol, everybody. Hello, Carol. So glad you were able to make it out this morning. And such a stunning outfit. I love the color.
Thank you.
Tell us, Carol, what brings you here today?
Oh, well, I've just been so happy for what ELECTOTRON has done for me. I just thought I'd help you folks out with this.
And how exactly has ELECTOTRON helped you out?
Well, I used the speeches that the ELECTOTRON wrote for me so that I could win last month's vice president of the PTA election. Isn't that wonderful?
That sure is wonderful, Carol. Let's give it up for Carol one more time. All right. And now, the ELECTOTRON 2020 will, in this very moment, custom write and print a speech that is perfectly suited to Carol's rhetorical needs as vice president of the PTA.
Perfectly suited.
Perfectly.
Bleeding edge technology, folks. Yeah, I'm sure of it. Yeah. I mean, it worked last time. Yeah.
Okay.
In Singapore?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, Singapore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bleeding edge 20th century technology, folks.
Bleeding edge.
I mean, and after all, this stuff takes time. Normally, this would take the processing power that would fill an entire living room just with the mainframe. So, yeah, just give us one little second here.
Bleeding edge.
The bleedingest. All right. Well, don't worry, folks. In the event of just such a technical issue, we have something prepared for you. A speech that was already written for Carol by the Electotron just earlier this morning. So, Carol, if you'd like to take a hold of one of our speeches. All right. If you want to take a moment, feel free to look it over. But of course, really, these things read themselves. All right. Our second guest, Betty Jo Jenkins. Give it up for Betty, everybody. All right. Betty, tell us, what brings you here today?
You know what? After I won the election for governor in Alabama, I thought, why run just one state when I could run two? So I'm running for governor of Pennsylvania.
All right. Well.
Okay. It should be.
Okay. All right. In just one moment, you will be able to see the beautiful action of this machine in action. And in the meantime, let's welcome our next guest to the stage, Ingvar the Just. Oh, of course. Just Ingvar, everybody. Tell us, Ingvar, what brings you here today?
Well, last summer I went raiding in England. Unfortunately, we did not take back very much silver, and so I am hoping that this machine will help me to convince my raiders to come with me again.
I think it absolutely will, Ingvar. Thank you so much for coming this morning, and please take a seat. All right, and our last, but certainly not least guest, Carl Barker, everybody. Absolutely. Carl, what brings you here today?
Well, I am running for a little-known position in my city known as the Board of Estimation and Taxation, which I intend to use as a bully pulpit. Having that name behind my name gives me legitimacy for my political views that are about my self-centered interests in land.
Oh, absolutely. Wonderful. You are among like minds here, Carl. Don't you worry about that. Please take a seat, Carl. All right. Yeah, thank you very much. So, each of our candidates has been presented with a speech, and now each of them is going to read that speech, which, of course, as I've mentioned, reads itself, and you, our lovely guests, will determine who among them has the strongest rhetoric. But really, let's all remember that the true winner is this fabulous machine right here. Carol, are you prepared?
I think so.
All right, whenever you're ready.
To let me make one of the employment to meet this information, if the obvious fact that progress in the greater part of taxation, I am a benefit. There are the farmer, to make one knows better day, not so much, so confused by the agricultural program in Washington, that the state of federal land in this nation complains, and the mind and the gathering of sound common sense of the promulgation of agriculture and agricultural products. Of those mortgages now used for that, the course 1,000 years in the price of the government. And I have community chest campaign to effectuate world recovery until some form of man enters into a few childish minds. Who is in Congress to know the agricultural centers of acceptance preached this simple fact, even by the farmer? Or, more useful than 1% of Georgia, despite the fact, when this campaign to exercise his income, in fact, when we are willing to express my farm relief, and so far as farms of direction of farm acreage for the agricultural policy, which made that after the C's for tree crops for his speech, then that doctorate of Alabama Mr. Hoover, and the C's for them, and it clear that we can restore the farmer some form of the duty. Alabama Senator Hugo Black. However, the old story of an executive can do everything in his possession, and the case of...
Stunning rhetoric, stunning.
Stunning, so synergetic.
Bleeding edge, folks, bleeding edge, paradigm breaking, that sound common sense over the course of 1,000 years. Alabama, Mr. Hoover, she's touching on hot button items here.
continuing to come back to the issues of agriculture that are facing Americans today. I mean, this was just really stunning. Even more useful than the 1% of Georgia.
Absolutely. She's addressing the existing confusing agricultural program flawlessly, and those tree crops.
Yeah.
We need to catch up on them.
But at the end of the day, it's all about the farmers.
It's all about the farmers. Sound agricultural values here for the PTA.
Absolutely. All right. Next up is Betty Jo Jenkins. Betty, whenever you're ready.
Of winning everywhere in one. Another 7 campaigning days to win for most nasty and stability in Europe. We're going to their enemy. And you heard inward investors, but quite simply, the rural mid and last year's Tory leadership. Election not one party of our duty to become that Tory party is not by the hard cash to the people of this last 50,000 extra investment in our local successes, cleaner air, and the awe-inspiring message, new labor and fewer beds will restore free eye and their hundreds of quangos and values, and the biggest, government, engaged doctors, now free eye tests and dental checkups. The House of the Conservatives admit their businesses are told them get nothing. Others may well in this campaign on Scottish sovereignty of Wales itself, or Labour strongholds like the NHS, listening to go down class sizes, rising class sizes, new Labour vote at Britain. We had 14 days time ever, so unambitious that go for the historic vote Tory party, a protocol written by the 1974 election provides the benefits. Of course, we touch so unambitious that just look at the Conservative or investment to have feel safest in Britain. Let me win as soon as Labour and grandchildren. A clean environment. In Britain, from every person in the NHS, I mean, they're called Liberal Democrats. Say Europe, Lib Dems, and reform our police officers back on waste, and the 11 years of Europe, it.
11 years of Europe. Exactly, Betty. Thank you.
This is exactly the kind of hard-hitting information that informed voters will want. Britain.
Britain.
Investment
in our local success, winning everywhere. Most nasty, not afraid to address hot-button, real politics here.
And willing to talk about investment in our local success, cleaner air.
Absolutely. Them get nothing, in her words themselves.
Mm-hmm. And I really felt Labour and grandchildren, a clean environment, coming back to the environment and cleanliness.
Exactly.
Really, just so synergetic. I mean, synergy. That is what we are talking about, folks.
Synergy.
Cutting edge, bleeding edge synergy.
This is some real out-of-the-box thinking here, Bob.
In the box.
All
right. Next up is Ingvar. Ingvar, take it away whenever you're ready.
Remarks at the boy, half there has defied his wife Rebecca in the underprivileged all necessary one. Necessary for all across our birthright, and we're working with the planet. I have to devote this promise after years by a voice and customers who undermine the complexity of energy, wealth, strength, inspires us. What a lot of death penalty. Now this comes into office that I can't afford whose lives to happen.
Yes.
Small business and Venezuela. And if it with me tonight as written, and I'll go and love, and will win because it's Kate Steinley, who deserve accountability and selling it over because with brains, we're going to talk about how nasty, how bad people. In Boston, Massachusetts, which I want to devote his tax cut raise into treatment, we won the opioid addiction. Does not too big part of Iran's path, of whom you ever be anything like that's like hell. We need millions of our police, DEA, ICE, Border Patrol agents, and teachers became a lot tougher. And think we're asking all Americans nothing. Absolutely nothing. Is out, nobody would be left to the way. They didn't mean you need to let us today, but it and Discovery and each and millions in to do it. Very, very successful, and our country. And we have ever seen the past, the bloodiest war on the last administration than 4 making historic institutions, and already removed and resilient, and we have seen We are you.
Thank you, Invar. Thank you. That was a unifying speech. Underprivileged, all necessary, one. Necessary. Necessary.
Absolutely. And just talking about the teachers and how the teachers became strong in this country, I just really loved bringing that in. And we won the opioid addiction.
We won it! We won that!
And just the prosaicness of this rhetoric. With brains, we're going to talk about how nasty, how bad people.
Yeah, absolutely. Small business and Venezuela, one of
And
his hot
Venezuela.
button items.
Oh, absolutely wonderful. All right.
What a lot of death penalty, though.
Oh, what a lot of death penalty. So tragic. All right, I think we are ready for our fourth speaker. Carl Barker, take the stage.
Coming back, our constituents, gentlemen, of quiet voices, they urge it if they want every citizen against usurpation. It calls for freedom. They don't want it, make them. Our tax cuts, we've had a year, forcing them at length, been accurately seen in observance of mine that, and I said he's doing the act of things, and we should hold you. Thank you. Are really crazed, and it's reflected and wouldn't even, if it may, then expressed by tremendous amounts of promise in the United States. The car industry, due because this room, they came up. We also received a disaster for February, and he'd sour the tax cut them, should get into us, zero. We have just formed confining it just days ago. Gave what I'm concerned in 1,000 students from an equal to try is necessary to a useful, but this point, MS-13, CJ, Great Britain. We're deliberately upon posterity, the security of the fourth, and fully ascertained in the best way, so important. And people some preliminary steps, which in the inspector of the laws and diffusing useful, but it to the same, I ran an entire world, thank you. You know technology we will, as of establishment, there can pass immigration reforms in nature, having any means yet in cases we are materially depends on the word reciprocal. And this construction of the Senate, and we're going to your drug dealers, traffickers. I'm so we do not stamped with kindness in the true liberty.
In the true liberty.
We
Wonderful
do not
speech.
stand with kindness in the true liberty.
We are going to your drug dealers, traffickers. Really strong stances here. A call to action.
Yeah, ascertaining in the best way. So important, in his own words, in the ELECTOTRON-2020's own words.
I love this line. Forcing them at length been accurately seen in the observance of mine. So perceptive.
Absolutely. And he's doing the act of things. That's a plan right there.
Mm-hmm. Scour the tax cuts. Scour it.
Scour
just
it.
the power of the language used by this device is
Absolutely.
just so empowering and synergetic.
I love the beginning. The beginning, it starts unassuming. Gentlemen of quiet voices.
Mm-hmm. Quiet voices.
Quiet voices.
Quiet voices.
Quiet voices.
Okay.
That's bleeding edge technology, folks. Bleeding edge.
All right. But of course, we're not the only ones forming opinions. If our candidates could stand up here. We're just going to do a little quick vote by applause. So, how many of you people are fans of Carol Weissman? And Betty Jo Jenkins? Ingvar the Just? And Carl Barker? All right, that was some incredible enthusiasm from our audience.
Absolutely. These speeches get people riled up.
Riled the heck up. All right, but I just don't know if it was enough to make a decision. I saw a lot of support for Ingvar there.
I saw a lot of support for Ingvar as well. It's very close between... What do you think?
All right, yeah. Okay, so unfortunately, folks, we have a tie, but don't worry. This is an opportunity. So, Betty Jo Jenkins and Ingvar, if you would step forward, it's time for us to proceed to the lightning debate. Because you see, the ELECTOTRON 2020 isn't just good for long-form speeches. It's good for everything, from rallies to town halls. From our politics jar here, Betty Jo Jenkins and Ingvar are both drawing a series of responses that the Electotron has in its wisdom crafted for them in advance. And they will proceed to have a debate on the issues that affect you. Yes, you. So tell me, what is an issue facing you today that you think is just at the touchstone of our global political environment? Any suggestions? I heard tax reform.
I heard tax reform.
Yeah, all right. So, Betty Jo Jenkins, if you'd like to step forward first, how do you feel about tax reform?
What I emphasize is we do, like local authority, when people thought we've learned and it arose on these problems.
Ingvar, how do you respond?
And Palestinians and everybody was even less productive, and new flu infects one based on Earth hour.
New flus. New flus.
Yeah, but when oppression produces massive budget deficits, we must never fall away. It is that this plan will make it clear and active community support on whether we intend to tackle this.
And this nightmarish conflict, a kind of the meaning of the sons of meeting, because if you what I deem ourselves for it bring from them an endless reign.
Until we need to the old lady on the street corners, the suspected drug dealer's assets and values of an international cooperation are undemocratic and enforce a new appreciation of appeal too.
Oh, yes.
Indignantly frowning upon terms where eventually ensure that if one side of natural to refer to die, side the Constitution out.
Yet from stronger and literacy in local communities with their economics, grow to build on any social behavior crime that makes the political system.
Strong points. Strong points.
Betty Jo Jenkins was asking the hard questions in that debate.
She really was. Inver was bringing up lofty ideas and gathering momentum, though.
Yeah, it was
He's inspiring
really
his
strong.
base.
Really inspiring, which is, after all, what he's here to do. But of course, that's enough out of us. What do you think? Who here is a fan of Betty Jo Jenkins? Betty Jo Jenkins, everybody. What about Ingvar?
I think they need to vote
Close.
again.
It's close.
I think they need to vote
I
again.
think we need to hear one last vote. Betty Jo Jenkins. And Ingvar.
I think that's it.
I think that takes it. Ingvar is today's winner of the candidacy. Give it up for Ingvar, everybody. Congratulations, Ingvar. Oh, congratulations on making it to the next round. I'm sure you'll make it all the way through. All right.
Excellent demonstration, Bob.
I think it is. And I think you all agree with me. After all, we wouldn't have invited you here today if we were not 100% certain that you would be on board with this fantastic new technology, which we are prepared to offer you today as a custom monogrammed 19 floppy disk set. For those of you who are interested in more, feel free to talk to us after the presentation and we can go over those details.
Or fork us on GitHub. Hi, everybody. I'm Meredith. I wrote this thing with the help of my friends. Guer was instrumental in gathering the data sets that were necessary to train these models, which are not terribly sophisticated, but without the help of our friend Carl Bond to get the Raspberry to talk to the receipt printer, this really wouldn't have happened. So I'd like to thank all of those people who helped behind the scenes and to help our friends who helped actually in the scenes. We have the fabulous Cass Fowler, Laura Shaw, Forrester Killian Smith, and Matt Ekholm, who have joined us for support. Thanks a ton. This was our first time producing our own thing, and thank you to Fearless for giving us a venue for that. We will have the Electotron 2020 on premises for quite a while, quite possibly until the end of the event. If you earmark your donation Electotron 2020, we will generate for you a political speech. This whole project came out of a poetry generation thing So we still have some of that data set available as well. If folks are interested, just tag your donation ELECTOTRON-2020, and if you're in person, we'll sort it out. Online might be a little bit more complicated. But we thank you in our hearts, and check out the GitHub, ELECTOTRON-2020/die-laughing. Thank you.